Is this the dagger?
G'day guys, JB here. A second month has gone by the wayside in the 2022-23 NBA season. The month of December is over with, so it's time to update the MVP race as I see it. We've had a couple of changes to the list. We've had an exclusion, we've had a couple of inclusions, we've had some movement around the list, a couple of changes in the honourable mentions department, and overall just some general reseeding as well. You'll notice a pretty consistent theme. You'll notice some pretty consistent changes throughout as well. One thing I will say is that none of my MVP contenders sit outside the top 6 as it stood at the end of December in their respective conferences. An honourable mention does sit in there, however, purely the fact that they are not going to be a playoff team, I really can't sit there and consider them to be in the MVP conversation. But without further ado, let's get into it. Let's get into the MVP race as of the end of December for the 2022-23 NBA season. Of course, we'll start with the honourable mentions, and you can see on the page right there, I've got Gilgeous-Alexander of the Oklahoma City Thunder and Paul George of the Los Angeles Clippers as my honourable mentions in the MVP race. These guys, for me, are the only other two players that are, number one, within the playoffs or working well, but they are responsible for at least 11 wins for their team this season. Obviously for Paul George, big thing hurting him is games played, and certainly the impact that Kawhi Leonard has had entering the team. For Shai, the big thing that hurts him is the fact that they are a 13th seed. So that is something to consider there. Both of these guys have been playing some really good basketball and really contributing as well. For Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, as I mentioned, the Thunder are a 13th seed. He has played 33 of 36 possible games, averaging 35.7 minutes per game. This, again, is to the end of December. He averaged 30.8 points, 4.8 rebounds, 5.8 assists, 1.7 steals, and 1 block a game. 3.3 turnovers, shooting 49.9% from the field, 35.4% from deep, and 91.3% from the free throw line. So having the best shooting guard year on those numbers there since Dwayne Wade, which is a really, really big advantage to him there. Again, the disadvantage being the 13th seed. Shai clearly taking that next step. He would have to be close to, if not my most improved player on the season. But again, I think the other thing that's helping now is the fact that he's starting to get recognised. He's been a huge contributor for the Thunder for the last couple of years, continues to be a key contributor. They're just not winning games, and the thing that's really annoying about the Thunder right now is they have the ability to win games, they have the ability to show what they can do. It's just not really happening. The team seems to be relying a lot in their draft stocks. But a really nice season for Shai so far. For Paul George, leading that Clippers team that just continues to get the job done here and there where it needs to. As the 6th seed here, has only played 28 of 38 games, so has missed 10 games there, but averaging 34.6 minutes per game, 24.4 points, 6.2 rebounds, 5.2 assists, 1.5 steals, and 0.5 blocks on 3.5 turnovers. Shooting from the field isn't great, 45.7%. I'd be expecting Paul George to be around that 47% mark there, and probably limiting the turnovers a little bit more as well. But good shooting from deep, 38.8% from beyond the arc and 88.8% from the free throw line. Again, Paul George having another solid year, but the big thing that helps the Clippers, number one, Kawhi Leonard has come back and had an impact. And number two, they continue to get the job done as a team that is essentially just role players outside of Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. John Wall contributing a little bit as well, but overall they are a good basketball team, which has really helped them as well. So they are my honourable mentions in the MVP race through to the end of December. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander of the Oklahoma City Thunder and Paul George of the Los Angeles Clippers. At number 10, down there at number 10, he was a little higher in my last list, but there's no reason for Tyrese Halliburton of the Indiana Pacers to be dropping out, and that's why he is at number 10 on the list. Currently at the end of December, now again, all of this is to the end of December. The Pacers were a 6th seed. He played 35 of 37 games, averaging 33.4 minutes per game. He averages 20.9 points, 3.8 rebounds, 10.2 assists, 1.7 steals, and 0.4 blocks on 2.5 turnovers. Epically efficient ball in hand, and that showed in his scoring as well. 48.5% from the field, 40.9% from deep, and 87.7% from the free throw line. To me, he is a starting guard in the East. A starting all-star guard in the East. I think him and Donovan Mitchell are the two best guards in the East right now. You've obviously got the play of Jaylen Brown and Kyrie Irving to consider. And surprisingly, DeMar DeRozan's had a pretty good season, albeit on an inefficient and an ineffective Chicago team. But Tyrese Halliburton right now, 20 and 10, really effective defensively. He doesn't turn the ball over. He's efficient, ball in hand or ball out of hand as well. He's really broken out. He's having another good season. He's taken that next step in his game as well. A lot of players on this list are really taking that next step. Of course, mentioned Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, but just browsing through the list, 1, 2, 3, 4, I'd say 5 of my top 10 players pretty much having breakout years and really stepping out for that team. In Indiana, they're a 6 seed. They're really battling hard and playing hard. They're a team that I didn't think was going to be as good as they are, but the fact that guys like Benedict Mathurin, Miles Turner, Buddy Hield, they're really playing their role, and they're having it with a lot of ease because they've got Tyrese Halliburton on their team. You look at some of the great point guards in league history, 20 points, 10 assists. That's Magic Johnson, that's Isaiah Thomas, that's Tim Hardaway, that's Russell Westbrook. LeBron James not a point guard, but as far as the point forward season, something he's done as well. So there's a lot of elite level talent, a lot of all-star level, Hall of Fame, all-time talent who have done that, and Halliburton's really playing to that level, and it's certainly a level of play that hasn't been seen since Paul George played with the team. And before Paul George, you're looking at Danny Granger, you're looking at Jermaine O'Neal, you're looking at Reggie Miller. So really putting himself right up amongst some of those legendary pacer names of the last 25 years. Tyrese Halliburton, number 10 in my MVP race to the end of December for the 2022-23 NBA season. Entering the race at number 9, and this was really tough to do, and when I look at it here, he could have potentially been higher, but it's really hard for me to put him higher because of the late start that he's had. Number 9, Joel Embiid of the Philadelphia 76ers. To the end of December, Joel had Philadelphia as the 5th seed in the Eastern Conference. 27 of 35 games, not necessarily the biggest tick in the box there, but again, there are some players who I do have a little handicapped in the way that is as far as responsible for wins to this point. 27 to 35 games, 35.5 minutes per game, and another big efficient year here for Embiid. 33.2 points, 9.8 rebounds, 4.6 assists, 1.2 steals, 1.7 blocks, 3.9 turnovers, a little to be desired there. Again, you consider the games, you consider the turnovers. 52.8% from the field, not too bad, making a third of his three-point attempts or thereabouts, and 84.8% from the free throw line. It's really clear, and Embiid is again re-establishing that right now, that Philadelphia are a team to beat when Joel Embiid is the man to beat. He's the most physically imposing center the league has seen since Shaq. He's playing both ends of the ball really, really effectively right now. And while the games are a question mark, and while the turnovers are a question mark, I can't discount the fact that he is arguably the best two-way center in the league right now. Do I think he's the best player in the league? No, but certainly the best two-way center right now. How much I value his defense and where I have him in my Defensive Player of the Year conversation is the other part of what really helps him in the MVP conversation at the moment. But Embiid really battling, really playing hard, really proving that he's the man in Philadelphia. Double-digit rebounds is something I'd like to see. Limited turnovers is something I'd like to see. But again, they will come part and parcel. Hopefully he gets a few more games under his belt here. As we know, MVPs generally play around 70 games on the season, and he's going to need to be almost perfectly fit to be really in that conversation if that is the case. But Embiid right now really, really playing some solid basketball. He's almost the best two-way player in the game, just the way he's playing with it at the moment right now. And again, really establishing himself in Philadelphia as the genuine product here in 2022-23. So at number 9, Joel Embiid of the Philadelphia 76ers, really making a stake and a place in the 2022-23 NBA MVP race. Moving over to number 8, and I have to go with the young Grizzly Cub, yet another player who, for me, has taken that next step in his game. Ja Morant of the Memphis Grizzlies. He has Memphis at the end of December as a 3rd seed. 30 of 35 games played and 32.4 minutes per game. He's averaging 27 points, 6.1 rebounds, 8.1 assists, 1 steal, 0.2 blocks, turnovers, proving to be a bit of a killer there at 3.7 a game, and scoring could be a little more efficient for a guy who is really looking to dominate that department. 45.5% from the field, 31.4% from deep, and 74.7% from the free throw line. Jar's just had a couple of cool periods which really haven't helped his case. The likes of Dylan Brooks, the likes of Brandon Clark, the likes of Jaren Jackson Jr. playing really well for the team. That's awesome. Again, Memphis top 3 seed, Jar playing really, really well. But again, you just look at the little things there. A high turnover rate, some inefficient scoring, and some lackluster defense. There isn't enough on the offensive end for me to excuse that there. We're playing some really good basketball, but there's just a few little things there to contend with. Obviously, as I mentioned there, likes of Brandon Clark, Dylan Brooks, Jaren Jackson Jr. on that team, really making things a little bit easier for him as well, because those guys are really making that next step, and that's why Memphis are a 3rd seed. That's why they're going to be a contender for years to come. He's genuinely the leader of that team, and he genuinely needs to keep playing well if they are a chance. Of course, the other question is the apparent alleged legal hanging over his head for an apparent alleged assault of a 17-year-old. I'm not sure where that one's going to lead there, but that's something that, again, would affect where Memphis are, affect where he is in the ranking as well. You do have to just take those things into consideration. But he's got double-digit wins on the board himself. He's got Memphis in a really good position. He's playing better basketball than he has at any point in his career so far, and really establishing himself as that next guy on the perimeter in this league. So, at number 8 in the MVP race for 2022-23, I have Ja Morant of the Memphis Grizzlies. Moving over to number 7, and in light of a hamstring injury, it might be the last time we see this guy on this list. Well, for probably not even in the next one. We might not see him until later in the season getting back onto the list, and that is Zion Williamson of the New Orleans Pelicans. Right now, has them as the 2nd seed at the end of December. Limited games has really hurt him, and the game numbers is certainly what is going to hurt him. We're going to really need to crack down on them very, very soon. As I mentioned, most MVPs play 70 games, and that's being durable and being on the floor and having your team in contention is something you do need to consider as well. 28 to 36 games, 33.1 minutes per game, but it's the efficiency of which those minutes are used. 26 points a game, 7 rebounds a game, 4.5 assists per game, 1.1 steals, and 0.6 blocks per game. That defense just needing to lift as well. 3.4 turnovers, not great, but certainly not bad in comparison to others. But it's where the shooting split comes in right now. 60.2% from the field, 36.8% from deep for a guy who apparently had no jumper, and 71.3% from the stripe. That's something he'll look to improve upon. But we're talking about a guy who's moving like a prime Charles Barkley at the same size. That's a guy who was a perennial MVP candidate for a decade. A guy who turned into one of the 15, 20 best players of all time. Zion really, really playing some solid basketball. And surprisingly, he's doing it when he doesn't have the most touches on the team. CJ McCollum is still leading this team in field goal attempts. Him and both Zion and Brandon Ingram are having that step back in comparison there. But he's really leading the way here. He's an excitement machine. The question is going to be the health now. Of course, I don't think he's going to get the games in, so he's going to have a monster run there. But New Orleans as a top 3 team, they're a deep team right now. They just need to be able to hold that and maintain it. And for Zion, it's just about of holding and maintaining the fitness level in his body right now, because he's really struggling with the way that has been going. Once he starts to get the hang of that and being able to balance that, then he'll be a far better player. Still plenty of years in his career to do it, but ideally you would like to see him do it sooner rather than later. So we will see how that continues to pan out. But at the moment, the end of December, Zion Williamson, number 7 in my 2022-23 NBA MVP race. Moving to number 6, and this is a spot that he was pretty close to the last time we did the list, and there's not going to be too much change moving on here on the list as to where everyone is ranking. But at number 6, I have Donovan Mitchell of the Cleveland Cavaliers. He's got Cleveland as a 4th seed in the East right now. 33 of 37 games played, 36.3 minutes per game. And you've got to remember this ranking comes before his 71-point game and effort to start January. 28 points, 3.8 rebounds, 4.6 assists, 1.5 steals, and 0.3 blocks. 3 turnovers, about average for a guy with a higher usage rate on any team, but efficient scoring, 48.4% from the field. You've got to remember, Mitchell listed at 6'1", 41.1% from deep and 87.7% from the free throw line. I've been saying it for the last few seasons now. I'll continue to say it. Don't sleep on Donovan Mitchell. He's not a great defender. Not many players in the league are great defenders. He has the ability to score the basketball. He can score the basketball from anywhere on the floor, and he can score the basketball efficiently. Get a couple of pieces around him, and you'll start to see the results. Look what's happening in Cleveland. He's got him to a 4th seed. He's only missed 4 games. He's playing plenty of minutes. He's playing efficient minutes. He's scoring well. Again, 71 points, 10 assists. The only person responsible for more points, again, it's in January. It's a moot point for this December argument. The only person to be responsible for more points in a game ever was Wilt Chamberlain. Let's get some perspective on what he's doing. You know, a lot of people are going to question it, but again, he's leading them to one of the best records in the league. He's playing really good basketball. He deserves the spot that he's in right now. He's the reason Cleveland's turned around, and he's giving them a historical season. It's Cleveland's best season without LeBron in 25 years, in a quarter of a century. The guy deserves his flowers. It was a risky trade. Don't know whether he thought it was going to pay off. It's very much like a Kawhi Leonard to Toronto. I don't think Cleveland's going to win it, but you can sort of get the comparison there as far as going to a team, relative uncertainty, seeing how it's going to go, and it's flying. It's playing really, really well, and Mitchell's responsible for that, particularly when you look at what that Cleveland team was bringing last year. They needed that next step. He's clearly the next step, and he's done it in a big way. Again, number 6 on my 2022-23 NBA MVP race, Donovan Mitchell of the Cleveland Cavaliers. Let's get into the top 5 now of the MVP race to the end of December, and I have the Slim Reaper, KD. Kevin Durant at number 5 in my MVP race to the end of December for 2022-23. At this point, has Brooklyn as a 2nd seed, has them on a huge run right now, and they are just beating everyone in sight. He's been really healthy as well. 35 of 36 games played, 36.2 minutes per game. His defense is up. His turnovers are at a manageable level. They wouldn't want to be too much more, but he is scoring the basketball with efficiency, and he's doing everything off it as well. 29.7 points, 6.9 rebounds, 5.3 assists, 0.8 steals, and 1.5 blocks a game. As I mentioned, 3.5 turnovers. Wouldn't want to be any more than that, but understandable with the pace of the game and the ball dominance of most stars now. But he's shooting 56.1% from the field, 36.3% from deep, and 92.3% from the free throw line. Kevin Durant's having the best season he's had since he was the MVP of the league 10 years ago. This isn't one of these situations where you look at, say, LeBron James, where you look at 2012-13 probably being the best season he produced, or you look at 2008-9, which is probably the best season he produced. He was a top 3 defensive player of the year, scoring title, MVP. You look at what Durant's doing now, in the difference in time there. I mean, he's just being one of those players. Again, we're seeing it more and more often in sports, where players are playing longer. They're not necessarily getting better, but they're maintaining an ability, and I think Durant's another example of that. Unfortunately, people don't like Kevin Durant. The media doesn't like Kevin Durant, so they won't talk about it. But you can't deny that really basic, simple fact of how well he's playing right now. He's having a career year. Don't think it's going to be enough for him to get the award, but it's going to be a big, big factor in just where the Nets sit and just where the Nets finish. Scoring efficiently, defending really well, getting teammates involved, trusting teammates as well. Right now, Durant has got the Nets on a roll. He's got himself on a roll. He's got him as the 2nd seed. He's only missed 1 game. He's playing efficiently. There's not much more you can ask, and he's responsible for, the 5th most wins for me. One of the 5 most, as far as what I consider a win. Were you the best player in a win, and how many of those do you have? That is also a big factor in where I rank you in this list. Because if you're playing well in wins, then you're pretty valuable. It's all right to play well in losses, but the team's got to get the W for it to mean anything at the end of the year. Durant's doing as much as he can to put the team in the best position he can. He's got him in the second seed. So at number 5 in my MVP race to the end of December for the 2022-23 NBA season, Kevin Durant and Brooklyn Nets. Moving over to number 4, and I don't think it's any shock really that what my 4 best players in the league are this year. Nikola Jokic has made a huge run and is now in my top 5. He is 4th in my MVP race to the end of December. He's got Denver with the best record in the West and pushing for the best record in the league. He's doing it efficiently, he's not missing games, and he's pretty much doing everything except play really good defense. Nikola Jokic, Denver as the first seed, 32 out of 35 games played, averaging 33.7 minutes per game. And here's where the numbers just continue to defy belief. This is a guy who is a centre. 25.5 points, 10.9 rebounds, 9.5 assists, 1.4 steals, 0.7 blocks, 3.5 turnovers. This guy has the ball in his hand pretty much more, when you do the eye test, he has the ball in his hands more than, well, everyone except the guy who's next on my list, so to speak. But he's shooting 61.6% from the field, he's shooting 80.6% from the free throw line, and he's shooting 33.8% from the perimeter as a guy who can't shoot. And he's doing everything he needs to do. Denver's now the 1 seed. He's still rolling out the points. He's still grabbing the rebounds. He's still dishing out the dimes. If he was to be responsible for close to the most wins this season, in comparison to where his team's record sits, I don't have a qualm in saying that Nikola Jokic could win 3 straight MVPs. The last guy to do it was Larry Bird, who ironically played pretty much the same as what Nikola Jokic did, except he got up and down the floor a lot better. He was a better athlete. But a lot of people are far better athletes than Nikola Jokic. We haven't really seen a big guy play the way that Jokic is playing since Bill Walton. And I think there's a fair case right now that if you argued that Jokic was the greatest passing big man of all time, a lot of people, old-timers and current heads, they agree. Again, we haven't seen anyone like this since Larry Bird. We haven't seen a centre like this since Bill Walton. He's just getting the job done. Players go down injured, he gets the job done. Players step up, he gets the job done. Right now, Aaron Gordon's their third option. Aaron Gordon was the third option on the Orlando team that finished 8th in the East. The definition of making someone or improving someone's game right now is Nikola Jokic. Again, I've got to have him in my top 5 for my MVP right now. He's burgeoning on that top 3. He's got he's got Denver as the first seed in the West. Really clear right now. Number 4 in my MVP race to the end of December for 2022-23, Nikola Jokic to the Denver Nuggets. And moving to number 3, hint, hint, my top 3 has not changed, so this one will only need to be reasonably brief. At number 3, I've got Luka Doncic to the Dallas Mavericks. And the big thing that's helping Luka right now that's continuing to put him in the spotlight, and he's very lucky they're not a top 3 seed, because if they were a top 3 seed, I'd probably have this man ranking numero uno. And they are just working through things right now, and he's going to be in this argument for the rest of the season. In fact, my top 5 and 6 probably isn't going to change much other than ranking throughout the season. They're healthy, they're putting up numbers, and they're leading their team to good records. Dallas is the 4th seed under Luka right now. He's played 34 of 37 games, and he's averaging 36.9 minutes per game. He's also averaging 34.2 points, 8.7 rebounds, 8.9 assists, 1.7 steals, and 0.6 blocks. Turnovers at 3.6 a game, I tend to want to let go when you look at how much ball in hand he has, and the fact that he's shooting 51.1% from the field, 36.7% now from deep, and 73.5% from the free throw line. So if you want to discount the fact that he's not playing great defense, if you want to include the fact that he's not playing great defense, fair enough. I can understand that argument, that makes total sense. If you want to include the fact that his turnover numbers are a little high, well, I can include the fact. And if you want to look at the fact that he's struggling from the stripe, that's fine. But if you also want to look at the fact that there's been no player in league history average at least 34, 8 and 8, it's a rounded 34, 9 and 9 realistically if you want to look at it. He's carrying a squad that really should be in the play-in tournament, that I thought would be stuck in the play-in tournament with just how inept they can be. Luka Doncic right now is playing on a different level. The last 2 weeks in the NBA, as I've just covered previously in my season video, Dallas went 7-zip. Now, they didn't beat much, but they beat what's in front of them. You can only beat what's in front of you. So the month of January is going to be very, very interesting for Luka Doncic and the way he goes about things. But again, if they're going to be a playoff team, Luka's going to be there or thereabouts. If they're going to be a top 3 team, Luka might be there. There would be no thereabouts. You've got to be harsh, and you've got to be critical, and you've got to almost nitpick when you're going to sit there and decide a vote like this. Sitting there and taking the narrative of XYZ on the stats, he's the best player on the best team, blah 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 blah. You need to look at the impact on the record. You need to look at the numbers they're producing, whether they're producing genuine wins, all that sort of stuff. For me, no one has won more games this season than Luka Doncic. And he's got his team as a top 4 seed when no one thought they were going to do much more than be a playing team. So he's doing really, really well right now. And if Dallas continue to win games, he's going to go further and further up the rankings. But right now, Luka Doncic, on a record-setting pace with historic nights left, right, and centre, is currently number 3 in my 2022-23 NBA MVP countdown. At number 2, he's still at number 2, and I still think he's the best player in the world, but he's still at number 2. Giannis Antetokounmpo of the Milwaukee Bucks. He's got the Bucks as the 3rd seed at the end of December. He's played 30 or 35 games, averaging 33.7 minutes per game. 32.1 points, 11.8 rebounds, 5.2 assists, 0.9 steals, and 0.9 blocks. High turnover rates there, but again, I do feel that Giannis is the best player on the planet. And I feel he's the best player on both ends of the floor. This isn't just an offensive-minded decision here. I've heard and seen some arguments. Yes, his numbers aren't the same. I still feel his impact is the same, though. He's shooting 53.3% from the field. He struggles from the line and he struggles from deep. That's been there since day dot. But again, the hard thing for Giannis right now is that he's had his 5-6 year window of that absolute zenith. I think he's still in that 5-6 year window for his absolute zenith personally, but it just becomes repetitive. He's won his championship, he's won his defensive player of the year, he's won his MVPs. We don't need to boost him anymore. I still think we need to give flowers to a guy who's still the best player on the planet. You can't overstate enough when someone is the best player on the planet. You can overhype someone to be the best player on the planet. You can't overstate when someone's the best player on the planet. And right now, Giannis Antetokounmpo is still the best player on the planet. Okay, he's not a great jump shooter. That's fine. He's still pouring in 30 a game. He's still a competent rebounder. He's still a competent facilitator. He's a more than competent defender. And he scores at a rate greater than he misses. The hard thing for him is the fact that the Mavericks have gone through a lean patch to end December, and that has really, really hurt his chances of being the number 1 ranking on this list. But for me, he's still the best player on the planet. He's still getting it done at both ends of the floor. He's making more than he's missing. He's there night in and night out. He's trying to get the job done. And when you look at some of those losses, it wasn't necessarily Giannis that fell down at the last step. So for me to sit there and try and discredit him when the team hasn't got a result is really hard, because he's the one that's still pushing on results as well. He's one of the 3 guys to have at least 18 wins on the season. That's the best way I can put it. So at number 2, in my MVP race for 2022-23 is Giannis Antetokounmpo of the Milwaukee Bucks. And finally at number 1, he's the best player on the best team in basketball right now. He is also one of 3 players to have had at least 18 wins on the season. He's missed only 2 games. He's playing epically efficiently. He's getting it done on both ends of the floor. Jason Tatum of the Milwaukee Bucks. Jason Tatum of the Milwaukee Bucks. My God. Jason Tatum of the Boston Celtics. To end December, the Celtics were the number 1 seed in the East. He played 34 of a possible 36 games, averaging 36.9 minutes per game. Averaging 31 points, 8.1 rebounds, 4 assists, 1.1 steals, and 0.9 blocks. Again, these are prime Kevin Durant level numbers as far as the 1 through 5 major stat categories are. He's averaging 2.6 turnovers a game. He's getting it done without the ball in his hand as much as he is with the ball in his hand, and he's doing it efficiently. 47.3% from the field, I'd give him just a pass mark there. 85.8% from the stripe, I'd give him more than a pass mark there. And 35% from deep. He's not a known shooter, but he can get the job done. He's the best player on the best team in basketball. He has not given me a reason to not have him number one, and no one has done so much work to succeed him as the best, as the number one option for my MVP in 2022-23. It's that simple. He's been leading for all but maybe 3 days of the season. As I mentioned there, had Dallas been a top 3 seed, I then have to look at it and go, well, okay, Luka Doncic, they're a top 3 seed. He's got more wins than anyone else this season. Yep, let's go for it. But I do have to be fair in considering that they're not a top 3 seed, that Luka isn't as good a defender. He does turn the ball over, even though he has the ball in his hands more. And Luka is probably the more efficient scorer. It's probably about par on the scoring department there as far as efficiency. But Jason Tatum's the best player on the best team in basketball right now. They've had a bit of a cold slump. They've been a lot quieter in the closing weeks of December compared to Dallas, who have just been on a huge run. But you look at who Boston played, you look at who Dallas played. You look who consistently gets it done on both ends of the floor, night in, night out. To me, I still have to have Jason Tatum as the best option for MVP this season. I'm a Rockets fan. Let me just put that straight out. I'm a Rockets fan. Did I really think that we were going to be able to compete against Luka Doncic? Good Lord, no. Do I think that we deserve to lose all 3 games? Absolutely. But I could also sit here and nitpoint all the other bad teams that Dallas have played. I could sit here and nitpoint the fact that he does too much and therefore his teammates can't get involved, therefore they are cold when he goes to them. But again, the real difference right now is the seeding and the turnovers and the defense. For me, better defense, less turnovers, better seeding, more wins. Jason Tatum gets that nod for me. That's really simple. And if it was totally up to seeding right now, Giannis would be my MVP. Because I think he's a better all-around player than both of them. Again, better all-around, not just being points, rebounds, assists. There are 2 sides of the ball. But for me right now, the MVP of the NBA to the end of December in 2022-23 has been Jason Tatum of the Boston Celtics.